My name is Ivy, and I work as an office assistant at Hilltop Marketing. Every day, I arrive at a bright office filled with the smell of fresh coffee and the hum of busy colleagues. I am responsible for organizing meetings and helping my boss, Mr. Thompson, keep everything on schedule. He always seems to have a frown on his face, which makes my heart race. Even on the good days, I can feel the pressure in the air. We have a big presentation coming up, and I sense that Mr. Thompson's mood will only make things harder. I want to do my best, but I also wish for a peaceful workplace where people smile and support each other. It was a Tuesday morning when the trouble began. I was sitting at my desk, gathering my thoughts when I noticed Mr. Thompson pacing in front of the meeting room. His face looked serious, much more than usual. I gulped, knowing something was wrong. Just then, Karen from the marketing team walked in, holding a stack of reports. "Ivy, we need those marketing materials printed and ready for noon," she said, sounding stressed. I felt a wave of panic. Why did everyone expect so much from me? As I rushed to the printer, my hands trembled. I knew how important this was for the upcoming presentation, but the printer had decided to stop working. I pushed the button, hoping it would suddenly spring to life. It made a noise but only spit out one crumpled page. My chest tightened. I glanced around, wishing someone would come to help. As minutes ticked by, my mind raced. What would happen if I couldn't get this done on time? Would Mr. Thompson yell at me? Would Karen be angry? I took a deep breath, trying to calm my swirling thoughts. I reminded myself that I had handled tough situations before. But then the doubt crept in. What if I messed up again? I could almost hear Mr. Thompson's disappointed sigh in my mind. I pushed those thoughts away and grabbed my phone to call the IT duo, Chris and Megan. They usually fix problems like this. "Hi, Megan. The printer won't work," I said, my voice shaky. "Can you help?" "Sure. I'll be right there," she replied, sounding positive. As I waited, I glanced at the clock. The noon deadline was fast approaching, and sweat began to bead on my forehead. I tapped my pencil nervously, willing the printer to cough out those papers. I could almost picture the disappointment on Karen's face if I failed. Was I in over my head? My heart pounded. What if the meeting flopped because of me? My stomach churned with worry. Finally, Megan arrived with a toolbox. She quickly examined the printer, and I felt a small glimmer of hope. Instead of losing myself to fear, I focused on what Megan was doing. Maybe I could learn something from this mistake, even if it seemed small. "What happened?" I asked her in an eager whisper. "There was a paper jam," she explained calmly. "Just a simple fix." After a few minutes of careful work, the printer hummed back to life, much to my relief. Megan smiled at me. "See, no big deal." I let out a sigh of relief. The paper started to pour out, smooth and perfect. Just then, the door to our office burst open, and Mr. Thompson strode in, looking more serious than ever. "Where are those marketing materials?" he demanded. My heart sank again as I quickly gathered the prints and handed them to Karen, who was now standing behind me, arms crossed. I felt a rush of heat wash over me. "Here you go, all set for the meeting," I said, trying to smile despite the tension. But even as I handed them off, the lump of anxiety remained in my throat. I was proud I had managed to fix the issue, but knew that this wasn't over. I felt the weight of my mistakes heavy on my shoulders. Even with a small victory, I couldn't shake off the dread that loomed over me, wondering if I would ever meet everyone's expectations. The struggle was far from over, and the challenge was just beginning. After the printer problem, I thought things would calm down, but I was wrong. Just as I managed to collect my breath, Mr. Thompson gathered everyone for a quick meeting. My stomach dropped, realizing I had to be there too. Sitting in the small conference room, the air felt heavier than usual. Mr. Thompson shared the new plan, and it was not what I wanted to hear. "We need to push the presentation up a week," he announced, causing my heart to race. The deadline suddenly felt closer, tightening the knot in my chest. I glanced around the room at my colleagues. They traded uncomfortable looks, and I could sense the mounting tension. "How will we do that?" Karen asked, her voice shaky. I felt the same worry echoing in my mind. Just then, Mr. Thompson pointed to a project deadline that stared back at me like a looming giant. That was when I noticed Eric, a senior member of the team, rolling his eyes. He often acted as if his ideas were the only ones that mattered. I could already picture him dismissing any thoughts I had. Sure enough, as the meeting ended, Eric walked over to me. "You know, Ivy," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm, "maybe if you could really keep up, we wouldn't be in this mess." His words hit me like a cold wave. I wanted to defend myself, to explain the printer and the time pressures, but I simply nodded, feeling small. I couldn't shake off the feeling that everyone was counting on me, and yet I was falling short, adding to the pressure already piling on my shoulders. After everyone returned to their desks, I felt a surge of frustration bubbling up inside me. I stared down at my empty planner, wishing I was somewhere else. The tasks felt endless and I was terrified of failing. Doubt spiraled in my mind, making it hard to focus. What if I ran out of time? What if I made another mistake? I knew this challenge would test me, and for a moment, it felt easier to hide than to confront it. As fatigue washed over me, I decided to take a short walk to the break room. I needed to shake off the pressure, but as I poured a cup of coffee, I bumped into Karen again. She was pacing, her face anxious. "This is not good, is it?" she whispered, her voice tight with worry. "No, it isn't," I admitted quietly. "But what can we do?" That is when I realized something important. I had the ability to change how I faced the pressure. The more I thought, the more I noticed. Other team members were as worried as I was. Talking to Karen helped me see that we were in this together. If I wanted to step up, I needed to think of how we could support each other rather than falling into doubt. Determined, I took a deep breath and set my cup down. "We could divide the work," I said with newfound hope. "If we all help each other, I think we can meet the deadline." Maybe it was time to push aside my fear and reach out for collaboration. I felt a wave of energy coursing through me. Perhaps this was my chance to prove myself. With a little more confidence, I started brainstorming ideas with Karen about how to tackle the tasks ahead. This wasn't just my fight anymore. Together, we could face whatever was coming our way. It was time to act differently and step up, not only for my own sake but for the entire team. I felt that perhaps this challenge was the chance I needed to shift the way I approached my job, allowing more light into my often dark thoughts about the future. The pressure felt like a weight on my chest as the day of the presentation approached. I spent countless hours at my desk making notes, talking to Karen, and trying to prepare. But as I walked into the meeting room that day, my heart raced wildly, thumping in my ears. I could see Mr. Thompson sitting at the front, his stern gaze fixed on the door as if he were waiting for some miracle to walk in. Everyone else was quiet, and the tension in the room felt electric. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the plan Karen and I had made. We were ready, but I still had a nagging doubt in my mind. Just as I took my seat, I noticed Eric whispering to two others at the far end of the table. His smirk cut through the air like a blade. I couldn't help but feel that he was dismissing what I had contributed to the team's effort. It made my stomach churn. Finally, Mr. Thompson called the meeting to order. As Karen began to present, I felt hope. We had worked hard on this presentation and everything was in place. But as she spoke, I couldn't shake off the fear gnawing at me. What if Eric opened his mouth? What if he didn't support our ideas? Just as I feared, he interrupted Karen halfway through. "I don't see how this can work," Eric said coolly, crossing his arms. The room fell silent and all eyes were on him. I could feel my pulse quicken, and I held my breath, urging Karen to keep going. But the weight of doubt was heavy. It was the moment of truth. Just as I thought the tension would break, I knew I had to act. The words nearly caught in my throat, but something inside me pushed me onward. I stood up, feeling a mix of fear and determination. "Eric," I said, my voice steadying despite my nerves, "we have put a lot of thought into this plan. Karen and I really believe this will work." I saw surprise cross Eric's face, but I continued. "Each person on this team has worked hard on their part, and we should avoid tearing each other down." I could feel my heart racing as I spoke. The room was silent, focused on me, and for an instant, I felt like I was standing at the center of the storm. My stomach fluttered with doubt, but I pushed through, fueled by my desire to turn this moment around. We need to support our ideas rather than pick them apart. Otherwise, how will we succeed? Mr. Thompson's eyebrows rose, surprised at my sudden boldness. The room had turned back to me. I could see Karen looking at me, encouragement shining in her eyes. "You're right," she quickly added. "If we work together, We can overcome any problems that come our way." Eric remained silent, his smug demeanor sliding away. It felt like a huge weight lifted from my shoulders as I realized I'd managed to speak up for myself. This wasn't just about the project, it was about standing up and voicing what I believed in. I felt a surge of confidence rising within me. I made a decision then and there. I would be an active part of the team, and I wouldn't shy away from voicing my ideas or concerns. As Mr. Thompson nodded slowly, the approval in his eyes began to soften the tense atmosphere. This was my breaking point, a moment that transformed how I felt in this workspace. Even amid the uncertainty, I knew that I must step up, accept this challenge and fight for our work. Sometimes, rising against doubt required only the courage to speak. As I stood in the meeting room, my heart still racing from having spoken up, I held my breath, waiting for the fallout from my boldness. To my surprise, there was no immediate backlash. Instead, the room was quiet, and all eyes were on Mr. Thompson as he seemed to consider my words. "You make a valid point, Ivy," he finally said slowly, looking around the table. "Supporting one another is key to our success." A wave of relief washed over me, and I sensed a shift in the atmosphere. What felt tense just moments ago now had a spark of teamwork and hope. Mr. Thompson turned to address Eric next. "I hope you can see that collaboration is vital here. Instead of doubting our teammates, we should build on each other's strengths." I glanced over at Eric, and for the first time, I noticed a flicker of uncertainty in his expression. Maybe my words had made him think twice about his usual approach. My pulse quickened with a mix of pride and apprehension. It was as if I had thrown down a gauntlet, and I was now standing firm in my place, ready to face whatever came next. Karen leaned over to me, whispering excitedly, "That was amazing, Ivy. I can't believe you spoke up like that." With her encouragement ringing in my ears, I felt a spark of confidence grow within me. The daunting pit in my stomach started to ease. I hadn't just stood my ground. I had transformed the focus of the conversation back to what was important: our teamwork. Mr. Thompson moved the conversation forward, allowing Karen to continue her presentation with new vigor. He liked our ideas and even asked questions that prompted deeper discussions among all of us. I watched as my colleagues began to engage in the dialogue, and the team dynamic started to shift positively. What began as an area of dread now felt electric with collaboration. My voice had helped steer us back onto a constructive path. During the discussions, I caught glimpses of Eric as he listened without interrupting. His silence turned into contemplation, as if my words had planted a seed of thought. I realized that in standing up to him, I was not just braving my concerns, but I was also opening the door for dialogue and understanding among my teammates. As the meeting came to a close, I felt a rush of accomplishment. I had acted from a place of courage, and my fears hadn't consumed me. Leaving the meeting room, I finally felt a sense of hope about our project. Even Eric shook my hand, albeit reluctantly, but the gesture surprised me. In that moment, I understood that growth comes from both facing one's fears and challenging the norm in a team environment. I could change the workplace climate even in small ways. My mind buzzed with excitement as I returned to my desk. I realized that I had learned something important about myself. I could be an integral part of this team, and my voice mattered. I didn't need to hide in the background. I could influence change and foster collaboration. This moment of clarity filled me with a sense of belonging I hadn't felt before. Facing the challenge felt less overwhelming. I was ready for whatever lay ahead, no longer afraid to speak my mind or take action when it counted most. After the meeting, I felt lighter than I had in weeks, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off my shoulders. I sat at my desk, the weight of anxiety now replaced with a sense of accomplishment. The contrast was incredible. I couldn't help but think of how just a few hours ago, I had felt almost small in that meeting room, trapped by fear and doubt. Now, I recognized that I had stood up for myself and my team, and it had changed everything. As I turned my chair to look for Karen, I found her at the coffee maker, pouring herself another cup. She caught my eye and smiled warmly, and I made my way over. "Thank you for your support, Karen. It made it easier for me to speak up," I said, feeling grateful. "No problem. You owned that moment, Ivy. I think everyone saw you differently now." "Honestly, it was inspiring," she replied, her eyes glimmering with enthusiasm. Her words swelled my heart with pride. Planting seeds of confidence can create a garden of support. I had no idea that what I said could leave such an impact. As I shared my thoughts, I reflected on my experience. I realized that I had been afraid of speaking out because of how Eric usually acted, but I learned that it's okay to express myself. Karen nodded in agreement. Exactly. Sometimes showing vulnerability can bring out the best in others. We may think that speaking up will lead to a fight, but it can lead to progress instead. Our conversation shifted, and I started to see the bigger picture. Facing Eric was not just about defending my ideas, it changed the entire dynamic for the team. Building trust is not a solo act. It's a collective effort. I thought about how I could encourage my coworkers in the future and create a space where everyone felt heard. Just then, Mr. Thompson walked by, pausing as he overheard our discussion. He smiled and approached us. I overheard part of your conversation, and I wanted to say that I appreciate the way you both handled that presentation. It was important to see everyone working together, he praised. A blush crept onto my cheeks as he spoke. His approval bolstered my confidence, reminding me that my moments of bravery could inspire others, too. Once Mr. Thompson left, I turned to Karen again, excitement bubbling inside me. What if we could create a weekly check-in with the team? A space where we can discuss ideas without fear of judgment? It could help everyone find their voice. I suggested, my thoughts flowing freely now. That's a great idea. It could change the whole vibe of our team, she replied, her eyes lighting up. I could see that she, too, was inspired by the changes happening around us. With every word exchanged, I began to adjust my perspective. I learned that speaking up didn't mean creating conflict. It meant fostering understanding within our team. I realized that this challenge was about growth, not just for me but for everyone involved. Facing my fears had opened new doors, laying the foundation for stronger teamwork and communication. As I settled back in at my desk, I felt determined. I would embrace every opportunity to speak up and lift others while doing so, knowing that our collective experiences could shape a better environment for all of us. I started imagining the possibilities ahead, and knew that my growth journey had only just begun. With each passing day after the presentation, I felt the changes within myself, as if I were blossoming in a new light. I carried my lessons learned into every team meeting, no longer hesitating to speak my mind. One afternoon, as I sat down with the team to discuss our next project, I noticed a subtle shift in my demeanor. The nervous habit of tapping my pencil and biting my lips slowly faded away. Instead, I found myself sitting tall, with a calm confidence washing over me. Okay, everyone. I began, looking around the table. I think we should kick off our discussions on the new campaign by sharing our initial ideas openly. No wrong thoughts here. I smiled, encouraging my colleagues. It felt empowering to take the lead in this way, and when they returned my smiles, I knew I was doing something right. During the meetings, I took the time to listen closely to what others had to say, making sure everyone felt included. When Eric offered his thoughts on the campaign during our first brainstorming session, I noticed a change in him as well. There was less arrogance in his tone, and he seemed genuinely interested in what others were contributing. After each idea was shared, I made it a priority to thank each person for their input, creating a supportive atmosphere. Inspired by this engagement, I also found the courage to suggest the weekly check-in meetings I had discussed with Karen. One day, I approached Mr. Thompson after work. I have a suggestion that I believe could improve team collaboration, I said carefully, feeling even more assured. When he agreed to trial these weekly meetings, excitement bubbled inside me. I wanted us to feel united, not divided by stress and deadlines. As we implemented the check-in sessions, I observed how everyone opened up about their ideas or concerns. Colleagues who had previously sat in silence began to share their thoughts more freely, and soon the energy in the office transformed. Ideas flowed like a river, and it felt good to be part of it. In my conversations with Karen, I noticed that she had also grown even more confident. We worked together seamlessly, and it was becoming easier to collaborate without the weight of fear and uncertainty hanging over us. Karen said to me, "You really made a difference, Ivy. I can feel the team bonding more and more." Hearing this made my heart swell with pride. My new mindset continued to develop as I embraced my growth, touching on goals that I never knew I wanted. I invited others to share feedback on projects, regardless of their position. This approach built relationships that I hadn't expected, and I learned how beneficial it was to see things from different angles. There was one afternoon when I bought donuts for the team, celebrating a successful project round. As we laughed and snacked, I noticed Eric smiling as he shared a story with Karen. I never imagined the office could feel this way. Full of laughter and camaraderie, the joy I felt in being part of this environment encouraged me to seek personal development beyond the work setting. I started reading books about leadership and teamwork, wanting to grow even further. My mind was now open to more possibilities, and I realized that this journey was just beginning. By adopting a confident, open approach, I discovered how powerful it can be to connect with those around me. Gone was the fear that held me back. In its place was an eagerness to push myself further. Just like opening a door to a new room, this shift in my perspective allowed me to explore fresh opportunities with an open heart, deepening my role within the team and igniting my passion for collaboration. Months had passed since that pivotal meeting, and as I walked into the office that morning, a sense of calm settled over me. The anxiety I once felt had transformed into a quiet confidence. The space around me brimmed with the familiar sounds of laughter, conversation, and the murmur of busy desks. Each day felt like a fresh opportunity, and the vibrant energy radiating among my colleagues lifted my spirit. Our weekly check-ins were thriving. Team members eagerly shared updates and exchanged ideas, reminding me of the journey we had taken together. One such meeting concluded with a round of applause for Karen, who had taken the lead on an upcoming campaign. She beamed with pride, her success a reflection of our collective efforts. Witnessing her confidence made me realize how far we had all come as a team. We were no longer just co-workers. We were becoming friends who relied on and uplifted one another. In my own work, I noticed a drastic change. Questions that once left me paralyzed now felt invigorating. Projects that landed on my desk seemed less daunting. Instead of waiting for validation, I approached challenges head-on. When Mr. Thompson asked me to manage a small project, I accepted eagerly. My hands had once felt unsteady at the thought of leading a task, but now they were steady and ready. One afternoon, I sat down with Mr. Thompson to review my plans. He listened intently and offered guiding advice, which I felt comfortable accepting. He was a mentor who seemed pleased to see me grow. "I've noticed how you've stepped up recently. Your contributions are valued, and I'm excited to see your continued growth," he said with a nod of approval. Hearing this praise filled me with motivation. I had come to appreciate the value of recognition not just for me but for each of my teammates too. As days turned into weeks, I realized that I could still grow and learn. By seeking feedback from team members after completing projects, I integrated their thoughts into my work, cultivating an environment of support rather than competition. I made it a point to send positive notes to those who inspired me, acknowledging their hard work publicly. This gesture not only strengthened our relationships, but it also reminded me that leadership is not just about taking charge. It's about elevating those around you. The small challenges that came my way no longer seemed like mountains to climb. One day, I handled an upset client calmly and listened to their concerns, which led to a solution that pleased them. This was a learning experience that boosted my confidence even more. I discovered the power of resilience and the fulfillment that comes from helping others. Looking out from my desk's window one afternoon as the sun began to set, casting golden light across the city, I thought about how I had once feared being in this position. Every struggle had molded me into a better version of myself. I recognized that growth doesn't mean perfection, but rather the willingness to learn and adapt. I still had room to develop. My journey wasn't over. I looked forward to every new challenge with hope. I envisioned future projects that would stretch me further, new responsibilities and opportunities to improve even more. Change had come to my workplace, yes, but it had also kindled a spark within me. I felt ready for whatever came next, confident that I could face it head-on. Embracing growth and connection would be my guiding philosophies moving forward, as I opened myself to new possibilities, knowing that I had found my place within this vibrant team.